I, I I feel bad that I haven't been getting to more of these because they are so good and there's such wonderful poets and great personalities. So definitely want to come back more. So thank you. And thanks for the lovely introduction. So I've been trying to decide what to read. I've got lots of new ones that I want to try. I'm going to read some from the Blood and Water book as well. But I'm going to start off with my latest one, in fact. This year is the centenary of the birth of the actor Richard Burton, and a woman in Swansea is creating an anthology of poems about him. Um, sorry, it's gone small. Anyway, can you still see me? So I was trying to think, what do I know about Richard Burton that I can contribute? And I remembered reading a story about how he used to visit his hometown um, with his then wife, Elizabeth Taylor. And I was struck by this kind of juxtaposition of great Hollywood actor and actress in this tiny little Welsh town. So this poem resulted. It's called Hometown Visit. She's dripping diamonds over the Welsh capes, her Hollywood actress's magic to absorb and become anything she desires. Learning to pronounce Pontrhydyfen and Borda Situaiti, mastering the art. Guttural vowels from perfect teeth, downing her first pint in the miner's arms, the honest scent of sweat and beer mingled with her passion. And he, a Welshman pleased as Punch in his hometown, telling jokes, anecdotes, playing to the crowd. Afterwards, they settle down, two international legends snuggled on the sofa of a two-up, two-down terrace. Strange incongruity, this welcome patch of dark after the bright lights. Skin accustomed to five-star sheets gathered in the scrappy warmth of a Welsh tweed shawl. She says it is the most comfortable night of her life, and he smiles. Sometimes I wonder if we become ghosts before we die, leaving little parts of ourselves wherever we go. Our reputations swirl beyond us, bigger than we could ever be. Perhaps we never leave these places we love. A part of us always lingers. The glint of diamonds over a pint glass, an indentation on the sofa, sighs in the woodwork, laughter. So a lot of my new ones are based around memories of my childhood growing up in Somerset. So I'm going to read a few of those, um, starting with this one, which is a good summary, really. It's about visiting places that have changed, um, but still you remember them as they were. It's called Ghost Lines. A mushroom sprout of buildings where trees once crouched, heads crowned with ivy. Fists of leaves served onto plastic plates to imaginary husbands who would later become farmers, pushing their bulk behind tractors and mud-trudged fields of nettles. Blackberries popped between lips, fearful past October of the devil's touch. Apples scrumped and crammed into buckets for bramble jellies in doily-capped jars to sell at gates. Snag tangles which tore cardies and drew blood, goosegrass stuck to sleeves and backs, nettles which stung us with the first revelation that nature could be cruel. The mole we found that morning on the lawn, his small velvet body splayed open to reveal a perfect tiny heart which both attracted and repelled us. These memories as distant now as the miles that separate us. Reckless laughter now hollows through these smug backyards where bored dogs bark defending territories, nosing neat turfs that were once fields, the meandering lane of the orchards which now bear lampposts instead of apple trees. I think I now understand how ghosts exist, how they are condemned to keep walking. Today I march a separate beat to these alien starless streets, my steps almost silent, still the rain absorbs me, see. I leave no footfall, nothing solid of me remains. And this one is about another memory of my childhood. I grew up in a house which was right out in the countryside, and it had a well, and we were always told as children you must never go near the well. And obviously, this said we wouldn't fall in, but in my childhood mind, it was so other things wouldn't get out. So this is called the well. As a child, I was afraid to go near. It sang with a come hither dark magic. I could peer into its fathomless depths and imagine myself trapped forever in some nether world, a place of green reflected sunshine, the place from which all primal things spring. My father nailed iron over the top to keep the bad things out, but still some nights I'd imagine them peeling translucent tendril limbs from the temptress water, where 1,000 unblinking reptilian eyes waited in the dark to claim me as theirs. I twist in my sheets, hearing the rumble of underground voices, rattle of stone against stone, trailing wet footmarks on the step. Think of that cold, dark magic pulling me in, the irresistible tug of it, the secret thrill of disobeying, of even thinking it, the cold, dark nothing that awaited me underground, called to me, that called to me, even though I feared it. I've been, thank you. I've been writing a lot of poems as well about some of my relatives, some of whom I knew, some of whom I didn't. This was my great aunt Mary, which is actually my great great aunt, who is a suffragette. So she's kind of one of our family heroes. And this is a little bit of her story. It's called Great Aunt Mary, and I read it for International Women's Day. Seamstress, making neat the edges of things, whilst all the time her conscience frayed, murmurs of dissent. A row of pristine heads bowed in servitude to factory walls, because that was what working women did, women's work for slender fingers and minds. Never mind that hers was always picking at greater challenges, asking the questions women were not supposed to, like, if not now, then when? Like, if not me, then who? Those rows of stitches ran away faster than fingers could cut. A meeting at Portsmouth Guildhall, women raising voices, workers demanding better, demanding votes. Now I see her in sepia, the only photo I have of her incongruously elegant in her Edwardian hat, not the image of a feminist that I'm used to, but determined, informed, unstoppable, working the only machine she knew, her voice, picking at the seams of their prejudice piece by piece, unstitching the years of conditioning, of preening prettiness and pin-tucked perfection, letting it go, watching it run. Thank you. And the next one I'm going to read, during the lockdown, a lot of people took up hobbies. My mum decided to take up handbell ringing, which isn't very easy for two people on their own in a house, but she did it. And I went to stay with her and I was reading a book about it. And so I picked out some of the phrases and this emerged. It's called The Art of Handbell Ringing, which was the name of the book. There's a certain tremolando that comes when you strike the bell just so. A juddering beat of leather to brass and your hand gripped tight around the base to avoid letting go too soon. Listen, if you want to get the strike just right, you need to learn patience, know the beauty of intervals, when to sound and when to stay silent. Watch for the leader to motion the first. That is key. And after that, an arpeggio of bells up and down the scale, what is it? A peal of carillonneurs, ringing out on angels' wings, cutting through the mundane, a shimmering, soulful staccato. Listen, there is only really this, the upbeat, the downbeat, a sharp resonance against the vast hollow of the bell, and your voice resounding from the darkness inside a single pure note. Thank you. I wrote this one for my auntie and uncle. My uncle has dementia, And my auntie, who is such a lovely person, one of the ways that they're still able to communicate and relax together is she reads poems to him. And it's something that they can both share. And so this was a poem about, and it's called You Were Always the Best Part of Me. These days, our sentences are shorter. We stick to what we know. The sofa is piling through years of wear, threads loosen at the seams. We pick at the edges of things, are frightened of conclusions. We live for moments, not days. At night, I sit on the edge of the bed, remembering who you are for the both of us, all the many selves you are and have been, from the time we met until now. We share lines of verse from long dead poets, second-hand emotions we can manage. As you slip your hand in mine, I squeeze your palm and tell you, it's okay. It's okay to live this way. Every day schooled out on the edges of the horizon in words too precious even to utter, like a poem we never expected to find. I'm going to read just a few from the collection, if it's right, Blood and Water. It was St. David's Day very recently, at the beginning of March, which is our national day for Wales. I didn't do so much to celebrate it this year as I normally do because I had relatives visiting. But we do have a house full of daffodils, sadly. So I thought I'd read this. This is my most Welsh poem. It's called Dylan, and it starts with a Welsh lullaby. And it's about Dylan Thomas, who also came from Swansea. So he's our kind of national poet. Ti halwli mabi, mae'r llongar mynd i'r ffwrdd. Ti fi mabi lwli, mae'r captain Harry bod. Ti halwli lwli lwli, cysgu mabi llws. Ti halwli mabi, mae'r llongar mynd i'r ffwrdd. He always had an inkling for the sea, that moondrift piled with the whirlpool pearls, his laughter melted sea foam, scooping up in shovels the dwindling dregs pattered into proud battlements. Watched as the water slowly inundated, crumbling moats and crooked towers to sink beneath the ever-growing storm. His first kisses were at this quayside. Soft like wet sand, he took her mermaid hand in his. He shrank back, eyes wide as a seal's, afraid of the coming tide. They lobbed pebbles ferociously at waiting rocks, placed seashells to their ears, listened to hear the flowing voices of sirens in the tides ebb and fall. And in his later years, landlocked, would peer into the lulling froth of beer and imagine mermaids pulling him back in again the dark and creamy depths. Caught out by silly tides, they awakened from the belly of the worm to a wonderland of giant bluebells reflected across the gaping yawn of the bay, to distant shores and bobbing pygmy boats, and find themselves explorers in strange, exotic land. Somewhere in a dim hotel, he's a rocking boat all adrift. She flashes him a fish-hook smile, reels him in, gulls flapping, but at his embrace dissolves into bubbles. Her laughter reverberates across the water. Thank you. So I think I'll just read two more. Is that okay? Am I right for time? Okay.
You're fine. Yep.
Yeah, good. So one thing I didn't mention in the biography is that I'm currently compiling an anthology about peace. It's an anthology called Peace Weavers. It's going to be published by my publisher, Culture Matters. And I'm including, it's going to have artwork, poetry, and essays about peace, and interviews with people who are peace workers. So it's like a big patchwork quilt about peace, really. And it's going to be amazing. So if anyone would like to contribute poetry or essays or artwork, please get in touch with me, or I can put something up. So this relates to that. It's kind of my attempt to try and understand how the attitude to war happens in the first place. It's called blooding. After the first, it becomes easier. The cold, wild-eyed stare of the deer, a crazy fish-eye lens looking backwards through terror. You shiver. You are only 12 years old and know what's coming. You've seen it before. A fistful of blood on your face still warm from the dead beast, the violence of your father's pride, your smile, trying not to retch, a rite of passage. At school, they taught you how to stand in line. No flaws, no questions, no insubordination. To stand up straight as the inspecting sergeant hurled insult after insult. To stand up straight and never cry. After your first, it becomes easier. Easier to stand on the side of the strong, and so you become the hunter, not the quarry. Learn to inflict pain quickly and humanely. Learn to look away and never catch another's eye. A rite of passage. One day, you will run a company, a city, a country. You will learn to push buttons. You will learn to issue orders. You will learn to look away. A rite of passage. And learn to ignore any sense of horror or revulsion or fear. That after the first 10th, 100th, 1,000, it has become easy. Oh yes, it has become all too frighteningly easy. So that was blooding. I'm going to finish with a poem that I normally like to finish with because it is a good final poem. It's called Last Will and Testament, and it was part of a workshop that I wrote about what would you give back to the world. You know, if you had a will, what would you give to who? So this is called Last Will and Testament. To the moon I give my bones, hollowed and brittle, but stronger than you'd think, to wear as a pilgrim's mantle. To the spider, my fingers constantly fidgeting over the keys. You are my world wide web now, so spin new stories and cover the hedgerows with words. To all poets everywhere, I give my skin to try on whenever you tire of being yourself. Use it gently. It is not as thick as you think. To capitalists, I give my compassion, since you seem to have none of your own. To the politicians, I give you my lips, imperfect as they are, that you will practice the motions of truth. To the beautiful, I give the snaggle-toothed hag of all my fears and self-loathing, so you may feel for one moment what it is to be less than perfect. To the clever, I give my ears so you can listen to yourselves and be wise. To the philosophers, I give my brain, for it is a paradox even you cannot unravel. For the clock watchers, my no longer ticking heart to show you the true meaning of time. And for you? To you, my darling, there is nothing left to give, for without you, I am nothing but the wind. So wear me as a sigh when you are lonely, and breathe me into being now and then. Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me.